April 18, 1943. Somewhere east of Bremen. 0842 hours. The air is cold enough to sting bare skin. You can almost feel it biting through wool uniforms as the column of German officers stands along a muddy roadside, helmets off, hands raised, not in panic, but disbelief. A low, distant rumble rolls across the sky. Not thunder, not artillery. Engines, many of them. Oberstleutnant Karl-Heinz Richter squints upward. He has spent the last 4 years listening to engines like these, counting them, classifying them, measuring their threat. Today, he does not count. He stares. Above him, the contrails stretch too far, too many, too orderly. Minutes earlier, his staff car had been halted by American infantry advancing faster than expected. The front had collapsed, not with chaos, but with efficiency. Radios silent, orders outdated before they were spoken. Richter had burned his documents himself, methodically, feeding folded pages into a lighter flame while shells thumped somewhere beyond the tree line. Now he stands captured. Around him are other officers, logistics men, engineers, Luftwaffe liaison officers, not fanatics, professionals, men who believe wars are won by numbers, not slogans. An American captain approaches, calm, almost polite. He speaks German well enough. "You're going west," he says, "not to a camp, somewhere else first." That detail lands oddly. The journey takes days, trucks, trains, a crossing that feels endless. The Atlantic is gray and rough, steel decks slick with salt. Richter watches the horizon, thinking of U-boat losses, of tonnage reports that have stopped making sense. Too many Allied ships, too few sinkings, figures that never reconciled, even on paper. When they land, the air smells different. Oil, coal smoke, fresh-cut timber. America. They expect interrogation rooms, barracks, perhaps propaganda lectures. Instead, they are placed on a train, clean, orderly, fast. The tracks seem to stretch everywhere, double lines, triple, sidings filled with freight cars. Every mile passes something producing something. Steel mills, foundries, plants with names painted boldly across brick facades. Workers in coveralls moving with purpose, not haste. No guards yelling, no forced labor, just motion. One of the Luftwaffe officers mutters quietly, "This country feels like it's already mobilized for the next war." Richter does not answer. June 1943, Willow Run, Michigan. The factory appears before they even disembark. It does not look like a single building, it looks like a city. Long, low structures stretch to the horizon, connected by corridors and rail spurs. Windows run in endless bands, glass catching the morning light. Smoke rises, but not in choking columns, in steady, controlled plumes. An American guide greets them, civilian, confident, no script in his hand. "You're about to see where the liberators come from," he says. The doors open. The sound hits first. Not noise, rhythm, metal on metal, rivet guns hammering in patterns, overhead cranes humming, conveyors moving with a steady, unstoppable pace. It sounds like machinery breathing. Then the scale registers. Inside, B-24 Liberators fill the space like steel whales. Fuselages glide forward on tracks. Wings are mated with bodies as casually as attaching arms to mannequins. Engines hang from mounts, waiting for their turn. Nothing is rushed, nothing is paused. An officer beside Richter whispers, almost involuntarily, "Mein Gott." The guide gestures ahead. "Every 55 minutes," he says, "one rolls out the door." Richter stops walking. 55 minutes. He does the math without meaning to. Per hour, per day, per month. He feels something tighten in his chest. This is not improvisation. This is not desperation. This is system. Workers do not swarm the aircraft. They flow around it, each person touching only one thing, one bolt, one wire, one panel, then moving on. There are no speeches here, no banners, no portraits of leaders staring down from walls, just production. Richter has read reports. He has seen Allied aircraft losses. He knows how many bombers are supposed to exist, how many crews trained, how long construction should take. On paper, the numbers always felt inflated, exaggerated. Standing here, They feel conservative. A finished Liberator begins to move toward massive doors at the far end of the building. Sunlight spills in, dust floats. The aircraft glides forward, wheels rolling, paint still fresh. It does not pause, it does not wait for applause. It simply exits, and another airframe slides forward to replace it. One officer removes his glasses to wipe them. Another clenches his jaw, saying nothing. No one is smiling. Richter watches the bomber disappear into the light and feels something unfamiliar settle in his stomach. Not fear, finality. The guide continues speaking about logistics, about supply chains, about interchangeable parts shipped from thousands of miles away. But Richter barely hears him now. He is thinking of Germany, of factories hidden in forests, of production halted by air raids, of skilled workers replaced by boys and prisoners, of designs constantly modified, never standardized. He thinks of requests denied because steel is scarce, of engines waiting for parts that never arrive, of schedules that exist only on chalkboards. Here, schedules are steel. Here, war is arithmetic. As they walk deeper into the plant, Richter realizes something more unsettling than defeat. This place does not feel like it is straining. It feels like it could go faster. And in that quiet understanding, among the endless rows of bombers sliding forward without pause, a German officer, trained to measure wars by maps and casualties, confronts a different truth. The war is being decided here, and Germany is not even in the room.
Richter does not speak for the rest of the tour. He walks, he watches, he counts without counting. Every few steps, another unfinished Liberator slides past on the line, identical to the last. Same rivet pattern, same wiring harnesses, same engine mounts waiting like open hands. This is not craftsmanship in the old European sense, not master builders shaping unique machines. This is replication. Perfect, relentless replication. A German engineer beside him finally breaks the silence. Major Wilhelm Krauss, armament specialist, formerly attached to Speer's ministry. A man who has spent years arguing for rationalization, standardization, fewer models. They are building aircraft the way we build ammunition, Krauss murmurs, only larger. Richter nods once. At one station, a young American woman tightens fasteners along a wing route. She works quickly, but not frantically. Her movements are practiced, economical. A foreman checks her work, marks a clipboard, moves on. No shouting, no tension, no fear. In Germany, factories work under blackout, under sirens, under the knowledge that tonight or tomorrow the sky may fall on them. Here, the sky belongs to the builders. They are shown statistics, not as propaganda, just facts, casually delivered. Production targets met weeks early, error rates dropping, replacement crews trained before losses even occur. Parts arriving by rail from plants Richter has never heard of in towns that barely appear on European maps. Detroit makes engines, the guide says. Kansas builds fuselage sections. California handles electronics. We just assemble. Just assemble. Richter feels a flicker of something close to anger, not at the guide, at the calmness, the confidence that does not need to announce itself. He thinks of Goering's promises, of speeches about miracle weapons and last reserves, of factories moved underground, losing efficiency with each relocation. This is the opposite of improvisation. This is inevitability. At a break, the officers are allowed coffee, real coffee, strong, hot. They stand near an open bay door, watching a finished B-24 taxi away on a concrete strip that seems to run forever. A tug pulls it gently, guiding it toward fuel trucks already waiting. No celebration, no ceremony, just the next aircraft. Krauss exhales slowly. Even if we shot down half of them, he says, barely audible, we would still lose. No one argues. That night, in their quarters, Richter lies awake. He thinks back to the early years of the war, Poland, France, the feeling of momentum, victory achieved faster than planners expected, enemies collapsing before systems could even be tested. Germany had won quickly, too quickly. There had been no time to build what America built before firing the first shot. Now the bill is due. Richter imagines the skies over Germany 2 years from now. Thousands of aircraft, not heroic, not elite, simply present, always present, replaced faster than destroyed. He realizes something else, something colder. This war is no longer about tactics, it is about endurance. And endurance favors those who can afford to lose. The next morning, the tour continues, but the spell has already been cast. They are shown training facilities, crews climbing mock fuselages, pilots running checklists over and over, muscle memory drilled into them before they ever see combat. Losses are assumed, planned for, absorbed. In Germany, every trained crew lost is a tragedy, a hole that cannot be filled. Here, it is a variable. On the train leaving Willow Run, the officers sit scattered, staring out at farmland and towns alive with movement. Freight trains thunder past in the opposite direction, loaded with steel, fuel, aircraft parts. Richter watches mile after mile of rails and finally understands why Allied bombing has not slowed production. There is too much to hit, too much to stop. Germany is fighting a country that has turned geography into a weapon. When they return to captivity, interrogation resumes, but something has changed. The questions are the same, the answers more subdued. At one point, an American intelligence officer asks Richter a simple question. How long do you think the war will last? Richter pauses. He thinks of the factory doors opening every 55 minutes. He answers quietly, as long as you wish. The officer studies him, surprised. Richter looks away, because the most dangerous realization is not that defeat is coming. It is knowing exactly why, and knowing there is nothing left to do about it.
Autumn 1943. Richter is no longer shocked by America. That phase has passed. Shock implies surprise. What has replaced it is colder, a kind of professional clarity that feels almost surgical. Back in captivity, he begins to listen differently. Guards talk, interpreters talk, engineers talk when they forget who is listening. Snippets drift through mess halls and rail yards, production figures, delivery schedules, names of cities spoken the way Germans speak of divisions. Pittsburgh, Detroit, Seattle, San Diego. Not fronts, sources. Richter begins to understand that Willow Run was not exceptional. It was representative. In Germany, the war is always described as a clash of armies, maps covered in arrows, cities circled in red, front lines advancing, retreating, stabilizing. In America, the war exists one layer deeper. It exists in supply orders, in shift rotations, in machine uptime. A guard once mentions that the plant had problems early on, bottlenecks, misaligned tooling, labor shortages. Henry Ford hated it at first, the man says with a laugh, said it couldn't be done. Richter almost smiles at that, because that is the part Germans never see. Not the success, the recovery. Problems here are not fatal, they are temporary, solved, documented, corrected. In Germany, problems linger, they are argued over, politicized, deferred, hidden. Richter remembers reports he helped file in 1941, warning that aircraft production needed consolidation. Too many models, too many variations, too much prestige engineering. The reports were praised, then ignored. Winter arrives. Bombing intensifies over the Reich. From behind barbed wire, Richter hears fragments of news. Hamburg, Schweinfurt, Berlin. Each raid described as devastating, yet somehow never decisive. Factories destroyed, then partially repaired. Production disrupted, then resumed at reduced output. Reduced output. He thinks of Willow Run again. Reduced compared to what? One evening, a Luftwaffe officer approaches him quietly. "You were at Willow Run," the man says. "Tell me honestly." Richter hesitates. This is not interrogation. This is something closer to confession. "They are not outproducing us," Richter finally says. "They are outproducing the war." The officer frowns. What does that mean? It means losses don't matter, only time. 1944 arrives. The Allied invasion begins. D-Day is reported as a gamble, a risk, a narrow window. Richter knows better now. The landing is not the gamble. The gamble was believing it could fail. Every landing craft destroyed can be replaced. Every vehicle burned can be rebuilt. Every aircraft lost over France is already being replaced by another one halfway down a factory line. Germany is defending with what it has. America is attacking with what it will have next month. More officers return from tours, not just factories, ports, rail hubs, training centers. The conversations in the camp change. No one speaks of victory anymore, not even quietly, not even hypothetically. They speak of duration. How long until Berlin falls? How long until fuel runs out? How long until the air defenses collapse entirely? They argue over months, not outcomes. One night, Richter sits alone, staring at a crude map scratched into the dirt. He draws no arrows. Instead, he marks factories, and realizes something that feels almost obscene in its simplicity. Germany is fighting the wrong war. The real battlefield is not Normandy or the Eastern Front or the skies over the Ruhr. It is capacity, and Germany entered it already outmatched. When an American officer later asked Richter what moment convinced him the war was lost, he does not mention a battle. He does not mention a defeat. He mentions a door opening in Michigan, a bomber rolling out into sunlight, and another one taking its place.
Spring 1944. The camp receives newspapers a few days late, edges frayed, headlines already stale. Richter reads them anyway. He has learned to read between lines now, to notice what is not said. The bomb tonnage figures climb, the casualty lists grow, yet buried beneath the noise is something more telling. American factories are not slowing. Not after Schweinfurt, not after Berlin, not after the Luftwaffe throws everything it has left into the sky. If anything, production accelerates. One afternoon, an American major conducting routine questioning asks Richter a casual question, almost offhand. "Why do you think we never bombed Willow Run?" Richter looks up. The question catches him off balance. He had assumed the answer was obvious: distance, priorities, logistics. But the major's expression suggests something else. "I don't know," Richter says carefully. The major nods. "Because we didn't need to." That sentence stays with Richter. Not couldn't, didn't need to. Because Willow Run was only one node. Because bombing one factory in this country would be like removing a cog from a machine designed to keep running without it. Richter remembers German debates about defending single plants, assigning flak batteries to protect specific facilities. He remembers arguments over which factory mattered most. Here, nothing matters enough to be singular. That is the difference. Later, Richter speaks with an American civilian engineer, unofficial, unguarded conversation. The man is proud, but not boastful. "When something breaks," the engineer explains, "we don't ask who's to blame, we ask how fast it can be fixed." Richter thinks of Germany's internal rivalries, ministries fighting ministries, commands undermining commands, credit hoarded, responsibility avoided. The American war machine does not care who is right, only what works. As summer approaches, Allied aircraft dominate the skies over Europe. The numbers no longer surprise Richter. He has seen where they come from. What surprises him is how few Americans seem surprised by their own success. They expected this. They planned for it years ago, before the war truly reached them. Germany planned for victory. America planned for continuation. One evening, a young guard asks Richter what he did before the war. "Logistics," Richter replies. The guard laughs. "Figures." Richter does not ask why. He already knows. The final realization arrives quietly, not during interrogation, not during news of another defeat. It comes when Richter understands that Germany never truly faced America in battle. It faced America's output. And output does not retreat. Output does not panic. Output does not surrender. When the war ends, Richter will return home to ruins and ration cards and silence. He will be asked what went wrong. Many answers will be offered: ideology, strategy, leadership. Richter will think of none of them first. He will think of a factory door opening every 55 minutes, of an enemy that did not need to hate Germany to defeat it, only outbuild it. The war was decided long before the last shot was fired, not by generals, not by tanks, but by a system that turned time itself into a weapon.